Well, we knew that it was coming for months. And now it looks like domestic drone use is going to come to an airspace near you. This week, Congress passed a bill directed at the FAA, which not only will speed up the nation's switch from radar to an air traffic control system based on GPS technology, but it'll also require the FAA to open up access to unmanned aerial vehicles within 4 years. So that means that by September 30th, 2015, drones will be flying in the same airspace as airliners, cargo planes, business jets, and private aircraft, as the Associated Press described it. Now, you can bet the law enforcement agencies are all eagerly awaiting the opportunity. But are we ready for drones to be surveilling our skies? And what are the new legal questions that will be brought up concerning our privacy? Here to discuss this with me is Harley Geiger, Policy Counsel at the Center for Democracy and Technology. Harley, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Now, okay, as I mentioned, this really was a broader FAA bill in order to modernize the way that we control our air traffic control system, but of course, this little bit about opening up the skies to drones was in it too. And so it passed with bipartisan support. But do you know, was there anybody out there, was there any civil libertarians that decided to speak up and maybe dissent when it came to the voting?
No, and you're right that it was a bipartisan effort, and it passed overwhelmingly in the Republican-controlled House and then also in the Democrat-controlled Senate. There were no hearings. The bill passed the House and then 3 days later passed the Senate, so the thing was fast-tracked. No hearings on privacy. The bill mentions nothing about the civil liberties implications of filling the sky with flying robots.
All right, so this one was a piece of cake for them, huh? We're going to get into the negatives, but first let's talk about what some of the pros might be, right? I mean, who do you think, for the most part, is going to be applying for these permits in order to use the airspace? Is it going to be law enforcement?
A lot of people are going to be applying for it, and there are definitely some pros. So law enforcement is considered the largest domestic market for drones right now, but it's going to be used by all sorts of folks, commercial entities, hobbyists. There's a wide range of technological innovation that can occur with releasing or allowing domestic drones to fly over our skies. However, as I said, that must be done responsibly, and I think having privacy and civil liberties protections in place beforehand are very important. Some of the pros include things that we've already seen. Drones were used to scout out the Fukushima nuclear power plant. They found environmental problems in Texas. They are helping cops with dangerous fugitives. That is true, and that is a valid use. But the use should not be as unrestricted as it is currently.
Is this something that I guess the media might be able to start using too, right? If they want to fly over a certain space and get a story, get the footage that you can't get with a helicopter?
As a matter of fact, I believe that the N.D.A.A, owned by Fox, has already flown the drone twice and got into a little bit of trouble with the FAA, but surely when it becomes legal for them to do so, then sure, they'll fly a drone.
All right, good point. So now when it comes to our privacy, what are the dangers? Because you've written about this too. If you look at what the Supreme Court has ruled in the past, then you have no expectation of privacy if you're in a public space. So how much does anything really change if it's a drone doing it versus, like I said, a helicopter or some other type of
So you're right that the Supreme Court has said that about privacy in a public place. That being said, drones offer a type of surveillance that we really haven't seen from helicopters and are certainly very different from human observation. Drones can fly for hours and hours and hours without a need to refuel. They can survey an entire town all at once. They can be outfitted with facial recognition cameras, license plate scanners, all sorts of thermal imaging cameras, high-definition cameras, you name it, Wi-Fi sniffers. So it offers a pervasive surveillance that we just have not seen yet. That being said, the Supreme Court and the law in general really is going to have to come to grips with current privacy law and the ways that this is restricted by the First Amendment as well, if Americans' privacy is to not enter a very dark period.
All right, so there are a few things that you have actually suggested that you think the FAA should do. Tell us about them.
So the FAA ought to do two things. First of all, the FAA, is currently licensing drones to law enforcement agencies. It will license drones to commercial entities and other government agencies on a more widespread basis within the next few years, as you had said. So for that process, for the licensing process, it ought to, one, require all applicants for a drone license to submit a privacy statement that includes the surveillance capabilities of the drone and how they intend to use that information. Two, the FAA should make all the drone licenses and the accompanying privacy statement publicly available online. That way, you essentially would prohibit secret drone use. Now, we can understand if
those are good ideas. Let me interrupt you just for one second, though. What do you think the chances are that we might actually see that happen, right? Because currently, I mean, you have the EFF that's filed a lawsuit to just try to get the information as to the permits that have already been granted. Once this becomes more widespread, Are they just going to want to be as secretive about it as they are now?
I have two thoughts about that. Number one, the FAA already has a very similar process in place for aircraft. If you go onto the FAA's website, you can search for aircraft by the owner of the aircraft's name, the make and model, the tail number, and so forth. Two, a lot of the chances of this happening is going to be up to the American people, and it's going to be up to Congress. If the American people and if Congress are silent on this issue and do not demand that the FAA do something about this, then no, the chances go down. On the other hand, if the American people comment to the FAA's proposed rulemaking, which we think will come out this coming spring, then there is a greater chance that it will happen. It is well within the FAA's mandate to have these sort of transparency requirements. The question is whether or not they will actually go forth with it.
Well, I guess that we can only hope then that people actually speak up and force them to take into account, some of these things. Yeah.
Sure.
Harley, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.